Welcome to another episode of Nothing Moves Without Us, a black culture podcast. On every episode, Clifford and I discuss shows, movies, and music from the past 30 years that have played a pivotal role in the black experience. Welcome back, everyone. It's Nothing Moves Without Us, a black culture podcast. Today, we're talking about the 1967 film Heat of the Night, In the Heat of the Night, starring Sidney Poitier. Clifford.
Poitier. You gotta put some soul into it. Poitier.
Poitier. If I have to do that every single time I say Poitier today, you're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna be disappointed with Sidney Poitier.
I always appreciate effort. So like even the
Yeah.
effort within itself, I'd be like, yeah, that's dope. My mic is coming in low. Let me see. Try that. All right. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So what's up? How's everything been? How's your week been going?
Everything's pretty, pretty calm, pretty cool, pretty collected. Uh, Trying to think of anything I did fun this weekend. Oh, I discovered that there's a city winery in Manhattan, right near Hudson River Park, which is cool, right? And
Nah, I
went
don't think
there.
that's cool, but I'm excited to hear you. I'm excited to hear your take on it. Go ahead.
It's a city winery, so it's like local wine. So I don't have to go to Long Island, you know? I can just hop on that 2 train to 14th Street and then, walk 4 avenues to Hudson River Park and have some all natural wine. So
Right.
yeah, it's pretty fun.
I get that. I think I'm off rip. I'm a snob. I'll just say
Hmm.
that. Like I'm not a fan of craft beer culture, the American craft beer culture.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of box wine, and I'm not a fan of wineries in cities that are like trash or area. Like I don't like having local Manhattan wine doesn't sound appeasing to me, right? The Hudson River is trash, it's polluted air. So like, what are they really like? I'm thinking about the ingredients. Like, I think about the ingredients and like like real, not real. I feel like respected food and drink. It's part of like the culture of like where it's grown, like Napa Valley, the Heights, and Italy and all that. Like I think about that, and then when I think about American culture, it's like, yeah, I made this beer in my basement. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. So
It's
when I hear a winery in Manhattan, I'm thinking about, again, the ingredients, the pollution in New York, and all the other little things that are factored into like the grapes and how they
hmm
how they made. Yeah.
I can't remember how they prepare the grapes, but I went to the New York Botanical Garden a couple weeks ago, and they were having a sort of wine tasting. So it's different wineries coming from mostly Long Island to kind of give people a taste of what's going on out there as far as the wineries go. So this is like the first winery in New York, but New York City has like the cleanest water in the country. So I'm not too worried about the water, but when I was at the New York Botanical Garden a few weeks ago, we met the guys that make the wine, um, and they were pretty nice, and they were, just telling us about the process, which I honestly cannot remember because I drank a lot of wine that day, um,
As you should.
as I should have. And and then they told us like, yeah, we're the first winery in New York City in Manhattan. So I went to their winery, and apparently they have live music all the time. Dionne Warwick is supposed to perform there, which is also pretty cool. It has an amazing view of the New York City skyline, the New Jersey skyline, which is incredible too. Which who would have thought? And
Right.
yeah, but it was cool. I I like it's not box wine, but I it was in a bottle. But I definitely I love I love a smaller, like business. So I do frequent, like, if I can, I'll frequent like the Bronx Brewery up over where I live, or learning about the City Winery was pretty cool. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna check it out. It was good. They had food, drinks. It was nice. It was nice. Did you?
Like
Uh huh.
go ahead. I was just gonna say, like, I always want to make it clear that I never knock what other people do. I just like know myself and
Mhm.
my the I appreciate like the culture and the heritage of things.
Mhm.
And I think that's like what I used to work at Italy in Manhattan. So like and my parents are from Haiti, so like I'm always interested in the culture behind things.
Yeah.
Being the first of something doesn't always interest me. Like I want to know the culture. I want to know yesterday I was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and today I'm just making wine just because I want to make the world a better place. And like that stuff like that doesn't
Uh huh.
motivate me. I like the long heritage, um, and like growing up that way. Like I taste the difference, and I really I feel like I taste the difference, and learning about the culture and history kind of adds on a different experience for me.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, though, right?
I know, yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think like you said, like some you're African American, right?
Mhm.
Right. And like I think off rip, there's a bit of this just disconnection between. I mean, I'm first generation Haitian American.
Mhm.
I think there's always a disconnection between anyone who has like a finite or like an awareness of a different country or their parents being immigrants within like first second generation, and the American coach is kind of like just finding a start, like you said, finding a start to be like, okay, like America was just a startup, right? Like we just
Yeah.
came here as a startup, let's figure it out. So yeah, the idea of it, I think is dope.
Yeah.
And maybe like 10 years from now, I'd go, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Let's try it. This New
You'll wait
York
10
winery
years.
sounds good. Yeah, that's like first and yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up Dionne Warwick too. I actually took my mom's to a Dionne Warwick concert. It's very randomly.
Mhm.
She had a pitch like a newspaper cutout of Dionne Warwick on the fridge, and I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking like maybe she wants to go there, so I may like get dressed on Saturday. I'm gonna take you out. So we go to the Dionne Warwick concert. It was at Brooklyn College,
Mhm.
and we're just sitting there. Dionne Warwick like walks up and down the path, and like I watch her as we walk past. We had pretty good seats, and mom thanks me. She's excited, and I was like, yeah, I saw the picture on the fridge, so I thought you wanted to go. She was like, no, people just told me that I look like her, so I just put it on the fridge. But like it's we both laughed, but it was still dope
Yeah.
to just kind of offer that energy and that experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad I thought about that.
That's really
I'm glad you brought it up too.
that's hilarious. It's also really funny because, like, after going, because I went with Robert, we're like, we got to come back, and then he was. Then I think I was standing in the front of the winery because they have bottles for sale, and I'm talking to one of the salespeople, and he comes out and he's like, the Bacon brothers are going to be here soon, and I was like, who are the Bacon brothers? He was like, Kevin Bacon and his brother, and I was like, well, we got to come back.
I'm thinking of like bacon, like a restaurant, like
Yeah,
bacon, like we like the brothers bacon, like
yeah.
like a Maravitali for bacon.
That's what I thought too. And then I was like, no, he's talking about Kevin Bacon. And I was like, cool, man. I love Kara Sedgwick. So maybe she'll be there too. That's his wife. So maybe she'll be there too. That'll be fun.
I guess maybe that's like the additional benefit of like new experiences like restaurants and
Hmm.
cities, right? Like the additional star appeal and connection you might make. So I get that. I get
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
But it was fun. Did you do anything fun this weekend?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think fun is very different for me.
I
I'm
mean,
an old
what's your
man. Like,
definition of fun?
fun for me, honestly, fun for me nowadays is just like being out in nature, going
Hmm.
for a walk, running, recording. Um, you know, last maybe last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, Eric and I went to like this art walk out here. Like stuff like that is fun. It's fun to experience the culture, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
experiencing culture is fun for me, and just kind of escaping is fun for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like your definition of fun. Your definition of fun is, fun is subjective. So it could be
Right,
whatever
right,
you
right,
want it to
right.
be. Sometimes fun is a
Yeah.
nap. I love a nap.
Fun. Sundays I've kind of been reclaiming my Sunday naps. I used to nap on back in the day when I would say that I used to work 40 hours a week, used to take like 18 credits. Sunday was my only day off from everything, and
Hmm.
all I would do on Sunday is sleep all day.
Yeah.
I was depressed too, but I would sleep all day.
Oh
um,
man.
so I've been trying to do like a 6 day work week where I would take Wednesday off, and I did it for like maybe 2 weeks, but I just have too much going on where I can't do it.
Yeah.
But now on Sundays, I've just been like, okay, I'm gonna sit in bed for a little bit, like watch something, close the curtains, like get like that little partially sunny feeling in the
Yeah.
apartment, and just take a nap. Whether it's an hour, 2 hours,
Yeah.
just refresh, and it it helps the week start off a lot easier.
Yeah. You create like a cocoon of comfort, a comfort
I like
cocoon.
that cocoon of comfort.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
And then you use that like I mean I try and do that too at least. I'm not a big napper, uh, but now I'm trying to get more naps in because by the time 8 p.m. 9 p.m. hits, I'm exhausted, and I'm like
that. Right.
I want to stay up because I trying to take advantage of as much time I have like for leisure as possible, and that doesn't usually constitute for me sleeping. Whether it's just like having a conversation with my boyfriend, chatting with my mom, or whatever. I don't want to be in bed at 9 o'clock. That makes me feel like I'm 80 years old. So I got to take my nap in the middle of
It's
the
funny.
day like a 7-year-old.
I don't even mind that. I'm okay with going to bed at like 8 or 9. I like waking up with the sun.
Hmm.
Um, right now I'm waking up around like 6:30, 6:47. Usually in the summer I try to wake up around 5:30.
Yeah.
Like going early morning runs because it's a lot cooler also, and like physically I really enjoy. I like being a morning person.
Right.
I used to hate it growing up, but readjusting life and rethinking, like reclaiming ownership of my life, waking up in the morning and like seeing the full transition of the day, seeing the sunrise, like all that is just like it's a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to incorporate it more into these few summer months.
Yeah, I get it because I
I get yeah,
definitely watch the sunrise in the morning too. It right if it's rising at 6:30 because that's what time I have to be up for work. So
that's good.
on the weekends I'm like, let me sleep until 9.
My sleeping in on the weekends are like 7:30,
Whew.
7:38. Yeah. Like once I'm up, like I can't, I won't go back to sleep. Like I'm up, I'll probably go lay on the couch for a little
Uh huh.
bit. Sometimes I read. Sometimes I go on the balcony and read for a little bit.
Hmm.
And like Gus or Gustav
Goose goose.
joins me out there. Gus joins me out there, and it's like, all right, time to start the day.
Yeah, I get it.
Um. So in the heat of the night, 1967, starring Sidney Poitier.
Poitier.
Um, I asked you earlier before we jumped on, like, how did you feel about the film? What was your full response going to be?
My response is, damn, racism is annoying. You know what I mean?
I love that.
It's so
I love that. I
annoying.
love
That's
that. I love
the that's the vibe I got from the entire movie. It was just like, damn, this guy who was Sidney Poitier, Virgil Tibbs, is just trying to do a job, and every time he's trying to do this job, here comes racism just creeping in on him all the time. So I was just like, wow, this racism is annoying as hell.
I love your growth because you see it as just racism. I see it as like whiteness. I don't know if you're saying racism, or do you feel like you're saying racism to be PC, or did you like while watching it just view it as racism generally? Did you see it as individual races doing it to each
It was
other?
definitely just, I think, generally just overall racism, where with in every way of the word, like in every way of the word, because from the moment uh, Virgil Tibbs steps off that train in Sparta, Mississippi, he cannot catch a break. So it's definitely, to me, I think, just overt racism. Uh, Lots to do with like white supremacy, um, and whiteness. I feel like all those things are sort of like connected in a way. So I just, yeah, it was just that annoying ass racism. From literally from the minute the movie started to the minute that movie ended, I was just kind of like, uh.
So I feel like that'll be an interesting angle, the way we kind of describe it.
Hmm.
Except for me, a lot of it is just founded on looking at it, understanding that the actions are racist, but for me, knowing that it is part of just the historically what the white experience has been, and I think what Sidney Poitier, Virgil Tibbs, I'll get into character. What Virgil Tibbs represents in this movie is just like the height of the black experience. Like you said, as soon as he steps off the train, it it it's just an issue,
Yeah.
right? Heat of the Night premiered 1967. It features Sidney Poitier as detective Virgil Tibbs, Rod Steiger as Chief Bill Gillespie, Warren Oates as Officer Sam Wood, Lee Grant as Mrs. Colbert, and a bunch of other cast members. Like you said, it's in Sparta, Mississippi, but I think it was actually filmed in Sparta, Illinois. Um, you know, overall, I love the setup for the movie. It feels very reminiscent of. I feel like I was a kid. I feel like I was like early teen,
Hmm.
like watching a movie from like the 90s and 80s for the first time. And it took me a while to process that, yo, this is 1967, right? Like it's not too far away. It's far away, but it's not too far
Yeah.
away. And like the opening scene, it's like so much dope things. I loved
Yeah.
about it in terms of just like the blackness that's incorporated into it. But the opening scene, Ray Charles singing, the train, the cinematography, and all you see in like that first scene is just a stool from the train. The conductor puts it down, and a man just walks down. He opens a door and he walks in and he just sits. And then next thing we're in like a diner or something. And then the story starts to slowly unfold.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the opening scene and like first three to
I
five
really
minutes?
liked the opening scene. When I watched it, I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then after I watched the entire movie, I went back and watched it again. Um,
Me too.
because I was like, I just need to watch it again. But it was, you're right, it was cool to see. You first see like the train pulling into the station. It's showing you Sparta, Mississippi itself. That it's this like quiet, sleepy town. It's like super late at night. And then you watch Virgil Tibbs exit the train and go into this bus depot. And he's like, waiting for the next, train to come in, which you find out a little bit later. But it was cool in a sense because it's such a great way to start a mystery. Um, because this movie is based on the books by John Ball, who wrote a bunch of books about Virgil Tibbs, who's a black detective. So it was really cool. It was just a great way to start watching like this murder mystery. It was a great intro, so I really, really enjoyed it.
Sorry, I was doing some readjusting. Yeah, I love the small. At heart, I'm a small town
Hmm.
guy. Like my dream is just to live in like a small city. Um, so whenever I get like that small town feel, you get the back streets, just the quietness, the
Yeah.
calm, the peace, right? Knowing that like it's just you. I enjoy the isolation of just like it's just me and the universe
Right.
sometimes, right? Like small town kind of gives you that feel. You get to interact with people like when you want, but again, like going back to the imagery and like that small, they say lazy town, like lazy town feel, but it isn't lazy. It's just like more
Right.
relaxed. I really love um, how they portrayed it in those opening scenes. I feel like railroads and like railroad crossings were like very popular back in the day, but it's how people traveled, right? Like train rides offer a unique experience that flying on planes just don't really
Right.
offer. And the train ride, like you said, as soon as you step out on that train, anything and everything can happen
Exactly.
because like there's like this limited, uh, first of the train ride is like it takes you like to the backwoods of like the small pockets of the country. Comes with its consequences as we learn,
Yeah.
but it allows you just to gain these unique experiences that flying on a plane or driving directly just never
Right.
offer.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're on a plane, the plane doesn't stop in a small town, so you can get a sandwich and wait for your connecting flight. You're in another airport with a bunch of people. Here, you have, it's Sidney Poitier. His character Virgil, he's he's got to stop in this small town. He has no choice. And even when you get a tiny bit further into the into the movie, you see he's just waiting for his next train so that he can get the hell out of there. He has no plans on
Right.
staying. He wants to get home. He was visiting his mom. It's over. He wants to get out of there. So yeah, I definitely think that the intro was it just gave you, like, the establishment of, we're about to get into something heavy, because it just opened this
Right.
door where it's like you start to see it's a predominantly white town, white white run, and here's this guy. So yeah, the intro is dope, dope.
I'm trying to find out exactly when it premiered, what month? August
Yep,
2nd.
August
Okay,
2nd.
so 1967. Cool, thank you. So August, sorry, 1967 is interesting year. It's at the height of the civil rights movement. The Vietnam War was going on. Um, Ronald Reagan just became president. I'm just looking at a few 1967 facts from
Mm-hmm.
Wikipedia. Let's see. NBA was formed. April 4th, Martin Luther King denounces the Vietnam War. Let's see. The Outsiders is published. Did you ever read the book The Outsiders?
By S.E. Hinton, right? Yeah. Yes,
Let's
I
see.
believe so. A
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
long time ago.
And watching this movie and just learning that The Outsiders came out around that time, I'm wondering. I'm trying to remember if there was any like racism in the Outsiders.
Probably.
Um, do you remember? Okay, probably. Uh, we got race riot in Tampa. Let's see what's going on. Buffalo race riot. So, all right. So June 11th. Actually, I'll go through all the race related stuff. June 11th, a race riot in Tampa after the shooting death of Martin Chambers by police while allegedly robbing a camera store. June 26th, a Buffalo race riot. July 19th, a race riot in Minneapolis. July 30th, a race riot begins in Milwaukee. August 1st, a race riots in the United States spread to Washington, D.C. Um, so yeah, we were in the height of racism.
Yeah.
like what is it? I mean, is there even a height of racism? Like it's we were just in the maybe the social response. I think
I
that's it,
don't know.
right?
Clifford.
We at that maybe we are in the height of social response
Yes,
racism,
that's
maybe.
exactly what I would say too. It's the social response to racism in 1967, around that time, because um, Sidney Poitier was the hugest movie star at that time. In 1967, he was the hugest movie star. He was bringing in tons of money. He had done 3 movies about race relations back to back. So definitely reflected the times, very much so. Also, I think there's one other, because I know, what was it, in June? In June, sorry, June 12th, which is that today?
Oh yeah,
Loving
yeah,
versus
yeah.
Virginia,
Go ahead.
1967. So that was another
Right.
thing, and so it's just,
And I guess just explain that for
oh,
people who don't
Loving
know, please.
versus Virginia was basically how miscegenation laws were overturned in the Supreme Court, allowing for uh, interracial marriages to no longer be illegal. I think I
Right.
summed that up correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I guess going back to the idea of like social response and social change, like even having the Supreme Court saying that interracial marriages are
Yeah.
okay, right? They're okay, is a shift in social culture, and that's like a shift in the federal culture of like social response. But we see the physical response from like the everyday people who are just kind of fed up. Um, I don't know. It's this movie was, I guess, a wake up
Mm-hmm.
call. I think at times, not even at times. Yeah, actually, no. Like I'm trying to go back and forth and trying to find like my medium, but I don't think there is. Every time one of the white person says "nigga," I was like, that's cool. Like that's just how we do it. Like it's that's just acting. Like you could just act and say nigga nowadays, and like no one cares, and it's all good. The first time I
40
heard it,
minutes in.
I was yeah, I was like, what? I was appalled, but I'll kind of get into this later about like why choosing this. Like it's a good reminder, man. It's a good reminder of ain't shit sweet. Um, like let's jump into characters real quick. So we have Virgil Tibbs, Detective Virgil Tibbs, who is a detective with the Philadelphia Police Department. You have Chief Bill Gillespie, who is like your typical chubby,
Hick.
small town. You want to assault the man, hick police officer. Um, you have his like main. I don't know if he was Sam. No, he didn't have a deputy, but Sam Wood, who's like the
Yeah.
other main officer. Everyone's just kind of closed minded, and they they their bigotry knows no bounds, right? Their bigotry knows no bounds, and they have very limited awareness into what's going on. At times, it feels like you don't know if they're corrupt or just incompetent, right? And you end up realizing that they just it's a little bit of both. Actually, it's a little bit of both, but I think the incompetence is
Outweighs.
kind of the
Yeah,
standard,
it
right?
outweighs.
So, like in the early opening scene, we talked about Detective Tibbs sitting in the train station waiting for his next train. Officer Sam Woods is just driving through town. He, he catches what's her name? Um,
Dolores
Dolores
Purdy.
Purdy, who likes to do a little peep show late at night, walking around naked with her titties out. Um, so he does his little. He watches it. He's driving through like Main Street, sees a dead body. He calls everyone he needs to. Calls Chief Gillespie, and
Mm-hmm.
Gillespie tells him to go around town, look for anyone who doesn't belong. He goes to the train station, and who does he see? He sees a black man. Automatically, black man, you don't belong here. And then they take him in for. They taking him as a suspect, right? Off rip. This
Yeah.
I got him, boss. I got him, boss. Yeah.
I it's just I wanted to touch on what you said about like incompetence in this. The only other incompetent police force that I can think of that's fictional is the police station, the police department from Woodsboro in the Scream movies. It's just, how have you not figured this out yet? Like, why are you guys so bad at this job? They just grab anybody off the street and they're like, this is the person. And it's like, oh, this wasn't okay. It's this person then. And it's just, no kind of investigation is being done. I think it's they're not used to having such high profile crimes happen in their city. So it's just like we need to get this over with and done so people don't have to worry about it anymore and we can be like case closed and like move on with our lives. And they are pretty much every step of the way. Virgil Tibbs, not Gibbs, my goodness. Virgil Tibbs is just kind of like, no, you guys are doing this so wrong. It's just not the right way to do this at all. But I don't know. Yeah, this police department was terrible. Rod Steiger, who plays Bill Gillespie, I believe he got nominated for an Oscar for this
And
movie,
he won.
and I have to say it's
Yeah.
yeah, he won, and it is absolutely well deserved because he played that role to a T. Like there was not a time that I did not want to like punch this guy's lights out. On top of the gum chewing, the casual racism.
I've
Oh
never
god, it
seen
was
anyone chew
nonstop.
gum like that in my life. It was,
I
I
have.
was, really? Damn. He was like,
So I think he only stopped once when he had like a realization. He was just kind of like, "Nyah, nyah, 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 nyah." And that was it. And then every other time he was chewing for 1 hour, 50 minutes, just chewing is probably the same piece of gum. It's no way it tastes like anything anymore, but it was just the worst.
yeah. Going back to what you said about, uh, the incompetence and them kind of pulling everyone in. I thought of the word xenophobia, um, and that's
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's just like the small town feel, right? Just anyone who it's been perfect here until this random person showed up. So you must be at
Right.
fault. There's no way any of us could have done it, right?
Yeah, definitely. If they can pin it on somebody else, even better. If it's a black person, even better. So it was definitely that kind of vibe. But uh, Virgil Tibbs' character just so well composed the entire time, pretty much, um, while being questioned about whether or not he had any involvement in this murder. He's got a clear alibi. Obviously, didn't do it. He just rode into town, and they were just kind of like, "Well, we don't believe you,"
Right.
and it was infuriating.
Yeah. And then eventually I think they go through his wallet and they're like, oh, why do you have so much money? He's like, I'm a detective. He's like, wait, he's like, you're like, what? You're a detective? So like, the office chief Gillespie calls Tibbs commander or chief in Philadelphia, and then his commander or chief is like, all right, well, they had a murder, so you have to stay and help them. And again, I'm thinking about just like the power dynamics, right? Like most likely his chief is a
Yeah.
white guy,
Mm-hmm.
and yo, I don't know, man. Like I feel like I'm always gonna get sidetracked with like following how this is supposed to be because just that initial feeling of powerlessness, right? He called him boy. When he
Yeah.
called him boy, my heart hurt. Like really thinking about the
Yeah.
experience, right? Really, really thinking about the experience of what the black experience has been. Knowing that is just a lived experience, right? Like it's not acting. It's a lived experience for millions, hundreds of thousands, and you just have to eat it, right? You just have to eat it. You have to eat
Yeah.
being disrespected, disregarded. You can't speak up for yourself. You have to be polite, man. And how limiting that is, how empowering, like to have the strength to persevere through that, right? And then like I compare it to
Right.
like where we are now socially and how things are just relatively a lot easier, right? Like there aren't that many movies with white people saying nigga, so it makes us feel like things are better. In my mind, I was like, you know what? I want to I want to do a movie with like some racist white people and have them say nigga, so people know that like this is like ain't shit sweet. Yeah, let's go.
I think Quentin Tarantino
Oh,
has that
fuck
covered
him.
because he definitely is.
He's a
I was like,
yeah,
I know I get it, yeah, but I was thinking that too when I was watching it because it took 40 minutes for them to drop the first N word, like the N bomb, right? And I was like, wow, that's almost twice as long as it would have
right.
taken if it was a Quentin Tarantino film. So it's like 40 minutes in that they dropped the first one. Quentin Tarantino probably would have been like the
First step,
first
right?
13, 14 minutes.
True
Yeah,
artistry, right?
but yeah, true artistry. But it was definitely one of those things too where he, like you said, they're on the phone. He's on the phone with his commanding officer, and he's just, well, I don't want. They don't want my help. They probably don't want my help, and they honestly really don't want his help. But when they find out he's like the number one homicide expert, like it was put, they decide like, all right, fine, we'll get his help or whatever. But the way they got caught up on the amount of money he was making a week, where they're like, how much money you make a week, boy? And he's like, $162.39. And they're like, $162.39. And they just keep saying the number over and over again. I'm like,
Like,
okay.
like thinking about how they think about relative growth, right? And like how like that's nothing to us. I can't buy anything with
Right.
190 whatever dollars, right? But like
Nothing.
imagining, oh man, yeah. I always
But it also shows
go ahead.
like the resentment that they have towards him already because, the Gillespie says like that's more than what I bring home a week, or like a month
Right,
or something like that. So there's like the added, there's already, the racism, which we're always going to have to address the entire time we talk about this movie. Then it's the fact that this guy is well dressed, he's well spoken, and he's making more money than them. He's obviously way smarter than all of them, like all of them, and it just keeps adding to the list of why they hate him even more than they already
right,
do. You know, so now ha- they really have no choice but to work with this guy in the sense that they know he's the number one homicide expert. So then it's just kind of like just so much resentment there. And, they both have to power through that, obviously, but it's different because Virgil Tibbs hasn't done anything wrong. He just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now he's got to help solve this crime in this racist town with these racist cops who just think that he's dumb but still accept his help. So it's like I said, it's this movie is the racism is just it's annoying from beginning
Right.
to end. So
Yeah. It's I like that you use annoying. I like that. Uh, I don't. I'm trying to think of the word, or like what I'm trying to like sum it up in like one adjective. And I'll think about it
mhm,
down the line. But going back to the language used, them calling him boy, them saying nigger repeatedly. The like overall, I think like I said, watching this felt very classical. It felt like a good classic movie. It felt wholesome. It felt perfect, and I think it's I feel like we don't really get cinema like this anymore. Or we do, we just don't really pay attention. It doesn't get the attention that it needs.
yeah,
But the imagery, like we talked about the opening scenes, the imagery, the lighting, you know, even with Sidney Poitier being like the main, excuse me, even with Virgil Tibbs being the main black character, and having other black actors throughout the movie, I feel like the lighting was still good.
yeah,
The still a lot of like beautiful scenes at the train station. Like there's a scene where the director's like on the other side of the platform, and you just see Virgil Tibbs is standing there waiting for the next train on his own, and you get like a full pan view of the train station. But there's a lot of beautiful imagery, I think a lot of great scenes. Again, the lighting was good,
definitely.
great sound quality. Yeah, I didn't have any issue with the way it was presented. I really thought it was like perfectly and beautifully presented. The script was beautiful and dynamic. The acting was phenomenal. I think everyone, like I can't think of anyone who didn't like really sell their part. How did
Right.
you feel about the directing and the overall features of the movie?
I like the directing. I like the directing. I didn't have a problem with that. There was some problems I had kind of with the story. I felt like towards the end it might have been a little bit all over the place, because they're trying to figure out this murder, and then I think finding out why this happened at the end, like what happens at the end of the movie um, with everything that happens. I don't want to give it away too soon, but it felt, I don't know, I thought it felt like a little bit lazy how they figured out how all this happened.
We
Like,
could give it out. I mean, this isn't anyone
yeah,
watching this knows that this is a spoiler. Like, yeah, so
I'm trying to think of, hold on, I'm trying to find her name. Where's your name? I took so many notes on this movie too. Mama Kaliba.
okay,
So when they go visit Mama Kaliba, and he- Virgil is talking to her, and he's like, "Why are you helping these white crackers and with this crime?" And then you find out that it's all to sort of cover up an abortion. And I was just kind of like, "Oh, oh, okay." You know what? Actually, in hindsight, it kind of changes the trajectory of the movie for me when I'm like, "Oh, all of this to cover up an abortion," but then it's just, I don't know. It was really. I just didn't that not the I liked the ending for the most part, but what led up to the ending was weird. And then they never readdress Mrs. Colbert, whose husband was
right.
murdered. Like we never find out what happens with like how she dealt with that. I felt like there wasn't always they didn't always do a good job of creating more suspects. You know what I'm saying? Because for the most part, because I've never seen this movie before. This is the first time today when they show Endicott. We all thinking like, oh, it must be Endicott because he lives on a plantation. He has all these black people picking cotton for him. He thinks very low of black people in general, but he doesn't think he does. You know what I'm saying? He thinks he's doing a favor for black people, and we pointed so much heavily at him. I think that there should have been more suspects. You know what I mean? Like usually when you get a murder mystery, there's like tons of suspects. You're like, who could it be? Like, who is it? And then with this, it was just like it was either Endicott or it was a complete surprise.
Yeah,
So I don't think I like that so much.
I kind of feel like it being a small town, right? There really aren't. going back to
Hmm.
the idea of xenophobia, right? There really aren't that many suspects, and Tibbs admits that he focused on Endicott out of his own personal biases. So Endicott was really
Right.
never a suspect. It's like the I feel
Hmm.
like it's funny. Someone asked me about reverse racism on TikTok the other day, which I don't believe in. Racism is just racism. But I think what on a very low layer, right? What Tibbs was dealing with in terms of racism, he he offered that projection towards Endicott because he sees this plantation, he sees this white man, and rich white
Hmm.
people are criminals. We know they do whatever. They have their hands in the pocket of people. So I feel like there were limited suspects to kind of go off of. The Mr. was it Colbert? Let me get his correct name. Yeah,
Yeah, it was Mr.
Mr.
Colbert.
Colbert, who was murdered. Like it's realistic to think about like business partners or anyone else who has money. Like when someone rich, when someone with money dies, you connect it to other people that they're kind of in cahoots with because there might be some type
Right.
of business backstabbing. Um,
Right.
but then we get the long drawn out version, which is that you talked about
Yeah.
it just being in a sense abortion related. Um,
Yeah.
which I feel like there should have been more, but I think back in those days it's just you don't want your sister, your mother, whoever, any female in your family being viewed as like the town whore. Like that's a
Yeah.
defilement within its name. I don't remember if they brought up religion throughout the movie, but
They
what,
they I don't think they really brought up religion in the movie at all. But the I think with the Endicott thing, like it almost made sense that he would be a suspect because so Mr. Colbert moves to this small town in Sparta, this small town Sparta, Mississippi, and he's gonna he's gonna build a factory. And everyone's like, when they find him, they're like, oh, they murdered that nice businessman who's going to bring us jobs. And there was also the rumor that when he did bring the factory, half of the jobs at the factory were going to go to coloreds, were going to go to black people. And when I heard that, I was like, now it makes sense to me why they would think Endicott would do it.
right,
Endicott works on a plantation where he has people picking, black people specifically, picking cotton, right? And if this factory job comes into town, who's going to pick the cotton? If half of the jobs in the factory are promised to black people,
right.
there won't be anyone. And then there was a conversation he has with Mr. Endicott has with Tibbs, where he's like, "Oh, what kind of flowers do you like? Do you like flowers?" And they're talking about orchids, and then Tibbs says that he likes epiphytics, and uh, what's his name? Endicott says something along the lines like, "Oh, you would because they're like Negroes; they need care and feeding." And then you're like, "Oh, okay." That's why he brought. That's why Tibbs is kind of so put off by Endicott because everyone in the movie is racist. They call him boy. They think he's dumb. But Endicott is almost like rubbing that in his face in a way, like, oh, Negroes can't do anything.
Right.
While he's like, you talking to this smart, you know, well spoken guy who's leveling with him. And then when he pretty much just outright says, you know,
Put him back in his place, right? Like
you're a suspect.
yeah.
And and then you get that moment, that legendary slap that apparently is like super, super famous, where Endicott slaps Tibbs and Tibbs slaps him right back.
Without a
And he,
second, what? Pow!
right,
I was like, oh,
even
this
think
is
about it.
dope. I love that. That got me hyped. That got me hyped.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was, that's what made sense, that while he's been dealing with this racism the whole time he's been in this town, trying to help these people figure out who essentially might have ruined jobs for everyone in that town that might need it. Endicott has the nerve to like slap him, like, how dare you not be in the place? And he's like, you're not going to talk to me like that. And he hits him right back. And it's great. And it's wonderful to see. But you get it. You get why Tibbs is now like, this has got to be the guy. And he's right. He lets his dislike for Endicott get in the way of, you know, solving this murder. But then when he realizes what he's doing, because he gets that reality check, he's like, all right, even though this guy is a bastard and he deserves to be punched in the stomach and kicked in the ass, it wasn't him. We got to find out who actually did it. So again, racism just getting in the way of him solving this crime. So, but yeah, Endicott was, and that was the thing too, I think, about Endicott that I hated the most. You get this guy who honestly thinks like he's this, he can't do any wrong. Look at him. He's living in his plantation. He's giving people jobs and like he's surrounded by black people. There's no way he can be racist. And it's like he is the worst. But then he has the time that I can't remember what he said, something like there was a time where
I could
if
shoot
you
you.
did that to me, yeah, I
Yeah.
could just shoot you. And it's true. And it's just it's a constant reminders of like somebody else can be in the wrong and the only thing that you did wrong was be born black, right? Wrong. And that's what you get, a slap in the face and someone telling you like I could have had you shot, and everyone else in the town agreeing, yeah, you should have been shot for that, no matter if he did it first.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's
Nothing Moves Without Us, a Black culture podcast, is brought to you by the Black Excellence Shop. Shop our Black Excellence calendar and journal bundle, 366 days of Black history, self-love, and personal growth. Receive 10% off your order with coupon code CULTURE at shopblack366.com.
Yeah, I think going back like earlier, I said that he put him in his place, and I think that's what a lot of this movie is. That you have, like you said, Endicott and Tibbs form that we feel like it's a bond, right? Like there's always these small parts throughout this movie where you feel like there's a transformation that might be happening, where it feels like there's a little bit of hope and things may be better, and someone has gained some type of awareness, right? Someone has changed their perspective, but or we keep gradually seeing that it's just, I'm just gonna put you back in your place, right? The thing with
yeah,
Endicott, like you talk about, he said, "Oh, you like flowers?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, okay." We talk about flowers, we talk about greenhouse, talk about all of this. Then it's like, yeah, but you're black, so
yeah,
what do you really know, right? Like, what have you really
right,
learned, right? We've
exactly,
endless scenes with Tibbs and Gillespie, and it looks like there's a breakthrough. Like there's a scene where Gillespie and Tibbs are at Gillespie's home, and Gillespie's like, "You're the first person to ever come into my home, like first person ever."
yeah,
And I forget the exact language. Gillespie said, I think he was just trying to say something about relatable, and Tibbs tried to relate
mm-hmm.
to him and said, "Yeah, like I forgot the exact language. I should have wrote it down. Excuse me." But then Gillespie's like, "What? Like, what do you mean, right? Like, how dare you try to relate to me, even at my
Right,
lowest of lows of life? Even though you make more money than me, even though you're here to help me solve this case, I'm still better than you."
yeah,
And that's just what it has felt like. I mean, throughout the Black experience, realistically,
right,
and that's just the way the movie is until the last scene where we have Tibbs and Gillespie at the train station.
mm-hmm.
Tibbs is going to get his suitcase, but like Gillespie grabs it for him. He walks Gillespie walks Tibbs' suitcase to the train platform. He puts it down for him, and they depart. And like you feel like someone's gonna say something first. It
Yeah,
isn't Tibbs. Tibbs is like, "Fuck y'all, I'm out." But Gillespie's like, you take care, right? You take care. And
yeah,
it's, for me, it was the reminder, like that's what it is, right? There's no apology. There's no thank you. It's just the, hey, all the best to you.
right,
There's all the best to
yeah.
you. You hope you figure it out somewhere, nigga. Like,
Yeah, pretty much. I think that was one of my that's the one that's the scene I took the most notes on. The one where the two of them are commiserating. I was like, these two men commiserate over how lonely and demanding this job is. And Gillespie just can't accept that this black man can have the same experience. He doesn't want what he perceives as pity because he's too racist. So it's like he literally, they're sitting there and they're like, yeah, I don't have anybody. This job is demanding. Everyone in town hates me. And then Tibbs is like, yeah, man, I get that. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're black. Like, and it just always gets in the way. And it's just so weird because like sometimes you can think of racism on a spectrum of how racist people are or could be. And I feel like those that aren't all the way at the end of the spectrum of super, super racist somehow don't think it's a problem if they're like just kind of racist? So, I mean, there's, I don't feel like anybody in this movie could be redeemed at all as far as how they treated Tibbs from literally the beginning to the end. The only people that ever showed him any sort of kindness were the black people that tried to hook him up with a car. They're like, you can stay with us. You're not going to find a motel. Just and his wife, the guy, I don't get his name, but he goes, Viola, we got a guest. And then even Mama Kaliba at the end, she's kind of just like, why are you working with these white people? Like it's gonna destroy your soul or something like that, or to that effect. And it's just like no one, no matter how right he was, no matter how well he did his job, they just can't find it in themselves to treat him with any sort of kindness, respect, nothing, you know. So it's just like a punch in the gut because you hear all the time, if you're black, you have to work 10 times harder. You have to, you just have to work 10 times harder, and when you do, you will be treated with like respect, and you will be rewarded with like praise and all of those things. And it just was not true for him. So he just has to carry himself in a way that means the most to him. It's more like a self-respect thing because these people will not respect him regardless of what he does. I think that's the what stood out the most in this movie for me. It's just like you can't you just have to do it for yourself. You can't do it for the respect of other people. And I don't think he did, which was why I think I liked Virgil Tibbs so much. He was just like, I'm just here to do my job because he wants to solve these crimes. But it's just always remembering like this racism is always going to be like second nature to all the white people, and they won't even question why they feel the way they do.
Yeah, I like that you brought up unredeemable, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it from the other side of hope, where don't hope, don't believe that there's any lesson to be learned for these for the racist. Like
Right.
that's not what this is. Um, the officers, Officer Sam Woods, Officer in Chief Gillespie,
Mm-hmm.
they don't really have any hope that they're gonna find a person, right? They
Right.
like in the early scene, Gillespie says, "All right, go around and just find whoever." Right? There's no hope because at the end of the day, all you can say is, "Hey, I sent him around. We didn't find anyone," and you just leave it alone. Tibbs is the only one who has hope because he's a detective, and not even a detective, right? He's the best. He's the best homicide detective.
Yep.
Um, and going back to like the relationship and interactions with cast members, and especially not cast members, with people in the town, especially Gillespie,
Mm-hmm.
he even had a hope that they were breaking through, right? Like he thought he was breaking down this layer and like connecting, and he got comfortable, and it was like, nope, don't have hope.
Right.
Even with the again, like the black people, Mama, what's her name,
Mama Kaliba.
Mama Kaliba, right?
Right.
Like, why you work with these white people? There's no hope in working with whiteness, right? Just
Yeah.
get your do what I'm doing, right? Get your money, get your bag from them, and just go about your life, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the one scene that I really did love was, and I wish I had his name, was when he got the car. I think it was the guy who like owned a garage.
Yeah.
I can't find his name. I love that scene because it felt representative of like what the black experience is, right? Like, I don't know you. You're black. I'm black. I get hell all the time. I live here. They tolerate me, so I know you just got here. I know you're going through it. So I'm gonna look out for you as best as I can. And like that was a beautiful. Like you said,
Yeah.
Viola, we got company. You see the
Yeah.
kids playing, having fun. I love those small little. I love those small little clips where like the black children were inserted.
Yeah.
It's also worrisome, right? Because they're growing up and going to be part of this community where they're going to be disregarded. But I think Black Hope,
Mm-hmm.
and this is kind of I'm thinking of like slavery and like
Mm-hmm.
birth and children during slavery, but like Black Hope is, maybe it gets better for the next generation, right? So
Yeah.
like I can't just not do anything. Do what I can, work with this tolerance. Hopefully these old races die out, and then hopefully my children have a better life experience.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you can. That's what you can hope for. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Mama Kaliba, which I thought was interesting. She plays Sidney Poitier's mother, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Um,
nice.
Her real name is B. Richards, and she was an activist. She was like a far left activist. She was part of the Communist Party. She was a playwright, an author, an actress on top of that too. So I think a lot of the lines that she says, I didn't look this up, are probably something like that resonates not just with that character, but with the actress that plays Mama Kaliba.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like I don't know. It's one of those things, Clifford. I know where you just like you just want to be celebrated for the things that you do and not have to worry about like people perceiving you a certain way because of your race. But then you just gotta kind of not do it for any other reason than the reasons you want to do it. But
Right.
it's just like it just sucks that you can make this movie in 1967, and me watching it, in 2022, looking at this movie, it's like, wow, I feel like I've seen this movie so many times, and you probably have, and you've seen it happen in your whole life. So it's like you see where it began. Like
Right.
this movie is where it began, where they started to show you like what Black people have to deal with constantly. Like this amazing cop has to deal with racism literally throughout the entire movie, and even when he's um, getting people off the hook for this murder, they're still being racist towards him because you know how they initially thought it was. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his.
Shagbag maybe.
He was a cop, but the guy they first tried to pin because he stole Mr. Endicott, not Mr. Endicott's wallet. He stole.
Was it Packy? No, not Packy.
No, Packy was the
I
guy
don't.
that they sent. Packy was the guy that was supposed to help Tibbs.
Uh, I'm gonna list to say names. There's Courtney. There's Henderson. There's Watkins. Packy, Ulam, Shagbag, McNeil, Charles Hawthorne. Maybe I think it was
Maybe,
Charles. Was it
yeah,
Charles?
maybe it was Charles. He was the character that they initially were like, all right, he's the murderer because he had stolen money from um the wallet of.
And he had the wallet on him when they
Yeah,
found him. Yeah,
yeah, and then he's like, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And then even when Tibbs steps and goes, yeah, he didn't do it. The murderer was right-handed. This guy's left-handed. It's not the thing. When he gets into they arrest him and throw him in jail with the guy. He's like, what do you want, boy? And I'm just like, it's how is this so second nature to everyone in this movie to just be as racist as possible every second of the movie? Like he's literally trying to help you. And I
right.
feel like if I was in that situation, if I was Virgil Tibbs and I was trying to help somebody get off for murder, and he was like, "What do you want, girl or boy?" Or I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think he did it. It's probably him.
Damn.
I just give up. I'd be
Yo,
like, whatever.
on some real shit, I respect. I respect that. I respect that. Right. I tried. I tried. Right.
Yeah.
I tried. So I found it. His name is the black man who owned the garage. His
Mm-hmm.
name was Jesse,
Okay.
and his name is Khalil. His real name is Khalil Bezalel, which
Mm-hmm.
is cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I would I don't know. There's a part of me like integrity, right? And as an
Yeah.
officer, he's an officer. He's a man of integrity.
Yeah.
And let's say 5 years down the line, right? Let's say I'm bad with the names. What's her? Dolores is like, hey, this and this happened, and then words get back that Tibbs lied and did his job poorly. I feel like he'd feel a way about that. He'd be dishonored.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll challenge that idea, right? Because a few minutes ago, you said you have to do it for yourself,
Yeah.
right? So you should honor your work as a detective and still do it even if they're treating you like shit. I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know,
know.
man. That's I think that's
That
why I don't think that, and I think that's probably why, like, some institutions I just couldn't be a part of. Like, I couldn't be a cop, man, because you know black cops at the end of the day, they're still black. So even when you get, like, cops in itself is a brotherhood, and then being a black cop on top of that, it's got to be super rough and super tough. So I know I would definitely never get into that line of work, because there are going to be times where you're challenged, and that challenge might be somebody deciding that's the day they're going to call you the n-word, or they're going to spit in your face. And like, integrity is important to a lot of people, and my integrity is important to me as well. Hence why I would never get into that line of work, because faced with that as a dilemma, I don't think I'd be able to do it. I'd have to step away, because there's like certain lines that you shouldn't cross, and people are willing to cross them just to get the racism across as the point. And I just can't do it, man. That's I just couldn't do it.
yeah,
It was too
and
many
that's
boys
the
being thrown around in this
right,
movie
right, right, right.
for me. I was like, and you're right. It makes you cringe, because even when the Charles character, who is initially uh who they think did the murder, he calls he calls Mama Kaliba girl. He's like, some girl does it, some colored girl. And the whole time I'm like, oh, this colored girl, she must be super young performing abortions for these like people. And then they show Mama Kaliba, and she's like a black elder, and I'm like, he was referring to her as girl, and that's so disrespectful. And I was just like, and that's the thing with her. She probably had her integrity too, and that's why she didn't work with the cops. She's like, you know what? I'll do these abortions for y'all. I'm gonna keep raising the prices, and that's all you're gonna get from me, because maybe her integrity was so important to her. That's all she was willing to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of the ever-present challenge of the Black experience, right? At what point does integrity outlast saying "fuck it"? At what point does integrity outlast and outshine doing what's right, or just having the drive to keep working and pushing through?
right,
Um, I've heard the phrase "the worst cop is a blacker cop." I don't necessarily 100% agree, but I understand the mindset and language behind it, and I think what's incorporated within that is the cell of the Black experience of the brotherhood, right?
right,
I'm black, you're black, tribalism. I'm gonna look out for you, brother king. I'll tell people, don't call me brother. I don't know you like that.
right.
Like I don't do that. I don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but once a black cop joins any, and it's, we could focus on cops, we can focus on any institution, any system that features some type of singular ideology and perspective,
Right.
religion. You're always gonna fall in line with what that ideology is at the end of the
Yeah.
day. On the surface, the sell is that all of that doesn't mean anything. Blackness comes
Right.
first, but when you're in the experience, right,
Mm-hmm.
it continuously feels like people choose the ideology and the whatever system they're in over the tribe. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of the everlasting challenge and the pump fake, like with the Black experience,
Right.
right? Like you jump into it thinking, he gonna look out, he understands,
Yeah.
right? Most black cops, especially in New York City, they came from the hood, they get it, they understand. But what's more important, the check, the integrity, the job, furthering the experience.
Right.
And you know you have a very few select group of people in any profession, in every system, who are going to challenge the status
Right.
quo. um I think I'll wrap it with this. Like, I understand wanting to leave, I understand wanting to quit, but it just leaves the door open for other people to fill in, who are gonna just do who are gonna be like, he did it, I'm out. He did it.
Yeah.
That guy over there
Yeah.
did it, I'm out. And which is unfair, right? Like, which is unfair, but it's challenging. Again,
Yeah.
this is part of the Black experience. You say, yeah, I work 10 times harder, right? I have to work 10 times harder within myself, within my integrity, just to be like, yo, swallow my pride,
Right.
do my job,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. But I think, like we were talking about earlier when we started, we talked about how fun is subjective. And I feel like so is integrity. What does it mean for you to have integrity? Is it working this job and doing your best even though you're dealing with people calling you out of your name, or is it walking away from the job completely and saying like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore because I feel like I am, I'm not respecting my integrity by being a part of the system anymore. So, like you said, there's a flip side to everything, but like fun, like humor, those things are subjective. It all depends on who you are and, what's going to help you sleep at night. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, but yeah, I don't know. It's got to be hard to, you know, be black, be a person of color, and be a part of, like you said, like a brotherhood when it comes to police departments, because at some point you have to, like, I don't know, maybe you have to look the other way or deal with it or walk away because you're not being fulfilled the way that you thought you were. So it's definitely a very loaded conversation when it comes to dealing with these big institutions. As I think, especially with police, because the police were formed first. It's they always say, like, police were the first slave catchers, and then it's like it morphed into something else. So it's like then you think about how um, slavery was abolished, but then now prisons exist and they're for-profit prisons, and majority of the people being put in these prisons are black. So then that's like also a form of slavery. So it's definitely like, you can try and do what you can from the inside to change things, or you can be somebody that thinks like, I don't know if I can change this thing from the inside, and you walk away. But again, it's completely subjective. It's just a really heavy and loaded conversation to have with so much historical context, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
So I'll ask you this question, and then I guess we can
Mm-hmm.
transition. Where is Oh yeah, I'll ask you, where is social responsible, where or is there a social responsibility for you when it comes to integrity? And I ask that because using the example of, I guess again, it's any job
Mm-hmm.
in general, right? Being in a place, being treated a certain way. Actually, no. Let's stay in this, right? Being Detective Tibbs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Integrity within myself, right? And saying, I don't need to deal with this. I don't need to I don't need to deal with being called these names and everything. Saying fuck it and having my self integrity to just go about my life where I'm appreciated and maybe a bit more valued in
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia versus setting the precedent, right? Um, and I know it's layered, right? Like I know it's layered, setting the precedent to be like, no matter what they throw at me, I'm gonna stand strong and firm. Um, and I guess sorry, this is a long question. I'm tying it in, but I'm reconnecting to the idea
Right.
of hope, right? Like hope. I think integrity in terms of hope has like a social
Mm-hmm.
responsibility where I set the precedent that again I showed you I'm the best black detective, right? So maybe it just sparks an idea that changes your perspective on black people down the line at some point. So, is there a line for you when it comes to integrity for self versus social integrity for the people you represent?
I think that um I guess it all depends. I think it's like you said, a layered question, especially if you're a black person, is that I have to somehow, I don't think that it's my responsibility to show white people that not all black people are a certain way, because it's just crazy to me to think that you would think this about this, you would think this way about a whole group of people based on nothing in the first place. But yeah, I don't know. I try not to, subscribe to, like, things like respectability politics and just like proving people wrong for the sake of, proving them wrong in hopes that they change their mind about something, because that's like a lot of education. I would have to have raised you to do that, and it's not my responsibility to, like, raise anybody. But like it makes me also think about how at one point in the movie you see Virgil Tibbs is he's at the train station. He's about to get on this train to leave, and Gillespie comes and he's like, "Oh, why are you leaving? Do you have to leave today?" And he was like, "I," pretty much like, the vibe of, "I don't want to be here anymore." And he kind of manipulates him and guilts him into coming back to help solve this crime, even though this entire time he's been treated like absolute shit by every single person in this town. And like you said, he does this. He figures it all out. He walks away. He goes home. He barely gets a thank you from anyone. He barely gets an acknowledgement. And now he's back on the train to where he's from. And do we really think Gillespie's going to go and say maybe blacks aren't that bad? He's probably just going to use, he's going to use Virgil Tibbs as the black person I know thing. He's like, oh yeah, I have a black friend that da 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 da. Oh, my black friend is da 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 da. And I just don't care enough about someone else interacting with me and walking away and like, wow, black people are not so bad. Or, oh, maybe not all black women have attitudes. That's not my responsibility. I'm not here to hold anyone's hands through their racism. That's your job to unlearn. Maybe me ending the conversation, me telling them, what, I'm not putting up with this bullshit, will be enough for them to go, what, maybe I need to educate myself. But yeah, I don't feel like I have any social responsibility to people.
You don't feel like you have any social responsibility to people in general?
I mean, to white
white
people, no, because I shouldn't have to prove myself to white people that not all black people or not all black women, because that's insane to me. That's so much more work I have to do for them to be comfortable.
Really, it's I don't view it as interest, as a comfort or like appeasement. Like I use the word of an idea, like sparking the initial idea. Like throughout in the heat of the night, there's scenes where you just have rowdy white people. Like there's a scene where those white men are in that
right.
car, and they're chasing Tibbs down. They're rear-ending him. He ends up in a warehouse, and it's like four of them. One of them has one of them has brass knuckles. Another has like a crowbar, and they about to wash. They getting ready to wash him up, but he's fighting back. He's like, nah, like you're gonna have to earn this body if you want it. You're gonna have to earn it. And Gillespie comes in and is like, yo, break it up, get the fuck out of here. He punches the guy in the stomach. Like on one level, right, there's some type of, I'll talk about the idea and sparking the idea. Like there's some level of redemption, I think.
I don't think
right?
so.
Like if he did, well, if he didn't care, like if someone like Gillespie didn't care, if he didn't care, he would have just been like, boom, right? If Gillespie didn't care, he wouldn't have wanted. And granted, I understand that it's fictional, right? But that's in terms of action, right? If someone is like, if he's on the end spectrum of racist, he don't give a fuck about niggas. He'd be like, all right, I tried my best, right? I tried my best. They caught him, they killed him. But I think we talk about representation matters, right? To me, representation isn't necessarily educating you or directly showing you. I'm just existing. I'm doing what I need to do. And like you said, right, it's not my responsibility to tell you, but if I'm doing my part, the goal, the hope is that someone is consciously aware of it and seeing it and being like, and unlearning some of the negativity they have. It's not the standard. It doesn't work in all aspects. But I think just the existence within itself and showing the different forms of representation, it slowly trickles away. It adds into like the influencing, and the goal is that the more you see other people doing it, the more likely your perspective is to change. And I'll end this section with this last part. There's I'm gonna want to get this right. There's a Joe Rogan podcast episode. I believe dude's name is Daryl Johnson, and he's a musician. I always see his name wrong. He's a musician, and he Daryl Davis. There we go. He met with a Klan member. He met with a Ku Klux Klan member, and just started having dialogue with him. And the end result of like that initial meet and like having regular conversations with someone, like he didn't originally know he was a Klan member. He finds out down the line, but just having regular dialogue and conversation with the Klan member, he learned the clan member denounced his robe and his
Mm-hmm.
Ku Klux Klan. So Daryl Davis went out on a mission to just connect with clan members, have dialogue with them, and show them that everything they've basically unlearn all the racist and limited perspectives they have on blackness. And like through that, I think he said, I can't remember the exact number, maybe 40, maybe 100 different clans members like gave up their robe just through
Right.
interacting with him. Like that's the extreme of it. Like that, I think that's the extreme of representation and teaching people to unlearn. But knowing that if you make the effort, if you put the information out there, whoever's willing to grow will grow. And I think Gillespie has some type of growth. It's not going to be
Yeah, not at
monumental.
all.
We know that. But there's some growth. There's some growth. And I think that's enough, right? And that should be the hope for the next generation, kind of tying back into what
I
we said
think
earlier.
Daryl Davis, that's what you said his name was. More power to him for doing that. I
Daryl Davis, sorry,
sorry,
Mike was
more power to him for doing that. I could never see myself doing that. I don't have the patience or at all to teach people how to treat me, how to treat women, how to treat black people, how to understand where we're coming from. I've tried it in the past. Like I've had conversations with family members that have very very skewed ideas about like feminism or women in general or blackness or other things. So more power for him for having that patience to do that. Um, but in terms of like Gillespie, I just don't feel like him stopping uh, Tibbs from being assaulted there was enough redemption in my eyes, because
I think he was going to be murdered. I don't think it was assault. I think they were going to kill him.
if they even were going to kill him, so we're under the idea that he's going to kill him, and then he pretty much he punches one in the stomach. They run off. Then what happens? They come back with like instead of 4 of them, now it's 8 of them, and they attempt to do the exact same thing. It doesn't end well because 2 white guys end up shooting each other, and it's not like after this happens we hear that these guys that were going to murder Tibbs got arrested, or anything happened to them at all. They just went about their lives living in this town that's still super racist.
We don't know that. But we don't know that. Like the story cuts off.
Exactly.
I feel like we don't know
exactly.
that.
So that's where it is. I feel like if it's plainly stated at the end that there was some sort of punishment, some sort of education or anything of that nature that happened to these guys, that they act as the law when Gillespie doesn't do what they want. Nothing happened. The mayor was like, he wanted that Negro out. We don't hear them, take back any of the bad things they've said, apologize for using like calling him a nigger or saying, we don't see any of that. We it's just another day in Virgil Tibbs' life, So I think that was my takeaway from it, at least, was that, Gillespie's just not redeemed enough in my eyes. I mean, like you said, racism to me is on a sort of spectrum. He's not the worst it could be, but he's not at all, not guilty of, anything. He's guilty of being racist. And I think there was he's just no redemption in my eyes for these characters because they don't seem to learn anything. I think maybe, I don't know, Gillespie might learn like, all right, maybe not all black people are stupid or useless, but at the end of the day, there's still like that lingering racism where he couldn't even, he couldn't apologize. Nothing was done. Nothing was done.
All right. I mean, my only last point to this is that growth is. I think we have to look. I think in all terms of growth, right? You have to look at the small wins, right? I think looking at Gillespie's, you've been saying his name correctly, Gillespie's character, it's a small win. I feel like what you're describing is a big win, right? Like a racist apologizing, that's a big win. That's not realistic, I feel. But offering that final, all the best to you, right? That's a little something, right? That's a little something. Um,
But but
so I'll try.
sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
look at all the bullshit that Virgil Tibbs had to go through to sort of teach Gillespie a lesson about racism. Like,
Right, but that you have to break people down, right? Like it's not. I don't think it's realistic to. I mean, granted, again, like granted, this is a movie. It's what, maybe 3-4 days. If I lived 50 years of my life being a
mm-hmm.
racist, I'm not going to interact with a black person for 4 days and be like, oh, love,
Yeah,
black people look good. Like, nah, I'm gonna still feel what I feel, and I may remember those moments. And if I have more interactions with other black people, like if he has other interactions with Jesse, he'll everything is just programmatic, programmed
uh-huh.
learning, right? You're just conditioned, and it just tweaks just a little bit of something. It's just a little
Yeah,
bit, right? And I think that little bit is sometimes just enough for what it is at the
yeah,
time. And that's kind of, I mean, maybe hope and redemption are huge words, and maybe that's part of like the back and forth we're
mm-hmm.
going through. But I think it sparks just enough to show some potential. There it is. There's
Okay,
potential
I
there.
see.
It may not be the huge potential socially
Right.
we need, but it's a little bit. It's something.
Yeah,
It's
I
something,
get what
right?
you're saying. I
Um,
just think it's like there's so much suffering that has to happen at the hands of of marginalized people for people who are not marginalized to get the point. It's almost like it's crazy what Virgil Tibbs would have to go through for uh Gillespie not to be as racist. Like you gave him a hard time. You were part of the reason why he had such a hard time. And I think like that's just a lot. That's just a lot of work. That's just a lot of pain. It's a lot of violence. You know, to
yeah.
to have to go through to teach somebody to maybe be better to black people down the line. So it's just one of those things where I'm just kind of like, I can't get behind. I just don't believe there's any redemption for that character, but I definitely understand what you're saying. Like it should be a step in the right direction for Gillespie to maybe better relations with black people in that town, but without people to, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay. um, so I guess real quick before we
Mm-hmm.
transition, the soundtrack. I saw Quincy Jones. I was like,
Yeah.
yo, it's score. So Quincy Jones, he composed, arranged, and he conducted the soundtrack album. Soundtrack is
Mm-hmm.
fire. You have Heat of the Night. What was that
Ray
song by
Charles.
Ray
Yeah.
Charles? Yeah, Ray Charles. You have Glenn Campbell, Roland Kirk, Boomer and Travis, Bobby Scott, Billy Preston, Ray Brown, Carol Kay. It, and the music just kind of adds on to the feel and the vibe. The song in the heat in the heat of the night. It if it's very. I've been talking about the death of hip
Mm-hmm.
hop, not the death of hip hop, but like black people losing out on hip hop the way, excuse me, the black experience no longer having ownership
Mm-hmm.
over hip hop, just like they don't have ownership over
Right.
jazz anymore. And thinking about blues songs about like Ray Charles that really just were about the pain and trauma of the black experience. Black people originate in blues, and how the music is just very timely and it fits in with the culture and the reality of the lived experience of the black
Right.
experience. Um, I don't know where I was going with that. I
No, it
lost
was
my
no. You're right. It
thought.
was great. I'm glad that they got Quincy Jones to score the music for this because he did a great job because it definitely captures every moment in the movie is greatly captured in the music, and I think a strong goodness gracious, why is the word not in my head right now? A strong I'm thinking a playlist. Oh my god, strong soundtrack really helps to
I
set
get that.
the mood for the movie. So it created like tension, but it was like still something you could bop your head to. So he definitely did like a fantastic job. Quincy Jones is a genius.
Right. So I chose this. Honestly, I chose this. So the original idea for this podcast was going to be 30
Mm-hmm.
plus years. And I think 30 plus years, but I kind of kept it within 30 years and no earlier than the past
Mm-hmm.
5 years. I had a conversation with one of my boys earlier this year, and he was telling me, I think during February, during Black History Month, he just went through like all the Sidney Poitier movies. I think either after or before he
Mm-hmm.
passed away, and he was just telling me about like his experience watching them. So when we were selecting movies, I was like, you know what? Let's just open this up to whatever, right? Like if a film came out in 1900 and they got it, let's watch it. Because all of it is still relevant to the
Right.
Black experience. I've seen the Sidney Poitier movies. I remember them being on like Channel
Mm-hmm.
9 growing up back in the day, like on Sundays. But I was never interested because I wanted the fun, fun
Right.
Cali movies. But I chose In the Heat of the Night because I think out of all the movies, I asked my friend like which one does he recommend, and he said In the Heat of the Night. So I really just chose it off of his recommendation. So salute to my boy Lex Anderson. Just want to say that real quick. Um, and the last is you know connecting this movie to the Black experience, the modern day Black experience. Um, and I feel like you kind of brought this up before, right? Nothing feels
Right.
different. The
It's
language is
different.
different, right? Like I wrote that. Yeah, I wrote earlier that it felt good. Like seeing the word nigger, like seeing it, like reading it in the subtitles and hearing people say it felt good and free because it felt real. It was like finally, like there's some just a reality and truth to what the
Mm-hmm.
experience is. I talk about the relative growth is this disconnection, and you can't say, and the Black people can't say it. We shouldn't say it to each other, and it's like nah, like there's something there, and it's there for a reason, and we need to remember like
Right.
why it was there. So I understand on one aspect language has evolved, but just the relations, the representation of what the Black experience is. Again, the language is different. It's not as hard in your face, but it's
Mm-hmm.
masked, right? It's things like stop and
Yeah.
frisk, right? It's or I forgot the exact term for stop and frisk, but there's all these other just unique policies and these code words and having it just be disconnected. So the orders come from the top, and I'm just a foot soldier just doing what I do, and I don't know any better. So it's not inherently me being racist. I'm just doing my job and doing what I'm told, and it feels like for me it feels like
Yeah.
nothing's different. Earlier I talked about I'm a small town guy. I wanna live in a small town. I want to have a main street. I want to walk down the street and say what's up to people. That's like the
Mm-hmm.
vibe I'm looking for. But the reality is never knowing if that small town might be Sparta,
Yeah.
Mississippi, right? Because it still
Yeah.
exists somewhere in this country, right? There's a Sparta, Mississippi that still exists, and that's that's what tells me that the Black experience hasn't fully evolved, and knowing that there is no Sparta, Mississippi, where Blackness is the
Right.
dominant race, and the white person, like who's this white person here,
Yeah.
like nah, it doesn't exist. So like what's your connection to like
It's
where we are
definitely, yeah, the social
nowadays? Yeah.
aspect still exists. I feel like if In the Heat of the Night was remade in 2022, there wouldn't be much you had to really change about it. It would probably be along the same lines, because these things still happen. It's still very, prevalent in this country. It's prevalent in lots of places. There's still sundown towns in America, which is something I kid just hard to, wrap your head around. So it's it was very, heavy to watch. I feel like heavier to talk about. Um, but in the end, I did enjoy the movie in the sense that I enjoy murder mysteries. And watching Sidney Poitier, do what Sidney Poitier does was was great. It was just my first time seeing something with him starring in it, because I rarely watch things that didn't come out after like 1989. But it was
Right.
very cool to watch. It was very cool to talk about with you, it makes me want to, delve deeper into movies like this with him in it. Just those groundbreaking roles given to black actors, just to, you get to see what happens when given the opportunity to, showcase what you're about acting wise, So I think that was really cool. It just goes to show you like what happens when you're given the, the opportunity to be this phenomenal actor, and Sidney Poitier was like loved by like, white people. He's loved by black people. So I definitely want to check out more movies by him, and I really liked him in this, so I definitely want to see him in more. I mean, not that he can be in new movies because he passed, but the movies that he has already done.
Yeah, I definitely plan to check out some more movies too. I just made a crazy connection while you were speaking. So earlier we talked about, get this right. We talked about Rod Steiger. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor. He also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Motion Picture. Sidney Poitier was also up for Best Actor, right?
Yeah.
It's a cop movie, right? Excuse me. I already revealed what I'm gonna say, but In the Heat of the Night is a cop movie. Training Day, a cop movie. Denzel Washington being the common everyday, being a nigga, right? Mr. Tibbs is a nigger, but what's Denzel's character name in Training Day? Excuse me. Let me get this right.
I couldn't even tell you because honestly,
Alonzo.
I couldn't watch Training Day.
Okay. Alonzo is just a nigga. He's just a regular everyday nigga. Sidney Poitier doesn't get Best Actor for dealing with what he dealing with that energy and training in Heat of the Night. But Denzel gets the Best Actor, leading actor for Training Day, just for like being on some nigga shit. And again, for me, the scene of connection, the disrespect, the disregard on what's worthy, right? Being a black man who takes white abuse, no one gives a fuck about that. Yeah, whatever. But being a black man, I'm King Kong and all that. Oh yeah, we like that. That's that hip hop shit. We like that. That's insulting, and fuck the Academy and all of that, man. That's how I feel right now. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree with you because like, who was it? Octavia Spencer won for playing a maid, and Halle Berry had to show her titties to get an Oscar. So it's like, it's just like you said, it's fuck the Academy because he should have won for Malcolm X, and they're like, no, let's give it to him for Training Day. Like, what the hell is that? But I digress.
Yeah, that's all I got. I feel like it's a good way to end. Like, yeah, fuck them, yo, fuck them. Yeah. YouTube Live on Thursday. I'll do a post about it also. So definitely, please come check us out. Dude, not this Thursday. I'm jumping ahead. Next Thursday, YouTube Live next Thursday. We're publishing. Let me just get the date right. I'll edit this out. So YouTube Live, June 23rd, where we'll be discussing In the Heat of the Night. Please, 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 if you haven't seen this, please watch it. I watched it on HBO Max. I also know it's on Prime Video, and I think you can rent it on other streaming services also. Please, please, please watch this and please join in. We definitely want some more perspectives. And again, challenges anything we're saying, anything that we feel like we haven't covered. That's all I got. Anything you want to close out with, Tati?
Definitely watch this movie because it was great, and I also can't wait to watch to see how big my hair got from the beginning of this to the end, because I know it's a little bit bigger than it was when it started. But
I'm gonna do a time lapse of that.
Yeah, you should have just like. But yeah, Sidney Poitier is the praise is well deserved, because that man is somebody that, like, his composure in these roles in this role specifically was chef's kiss. So
yeah, salute. All right, until next time, peace.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find us on YouTube for bi-weekly club discussions and occasional recaps at Nothing Moves Without Us. Please follow our TikTok and Instagram at A Black Culture Podcast, and you can watch podcast episodes on YouTube at Nothing Moves Without Us, A Black Culture Podcast.